Imagine waking up. You're 50 years old, right?
Okay, yeah.
And you look around at your mortgage, your career, all these obligations you've piled up.
The whole modern package.
Exactly. And you suddenly realize you spent the last 3 decades building this highly complex, incredibly stressful prison.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, you did everything society told you to do, yet you just feel, totally overwhelmed by the sheer density of your own life.
It's a heavy realization.
It really is. So, welcome to today's deep dive. We're looking at this fascinating audio exploration of the 23rd gene key, and it basically argues that your intellect isn't going to save you from that prison.
Right, because your intellect probably built it.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this because it promises a real shortcut to cutting through all that noise. The whole mission today is moving away from that exhausting complexity, and the premise rests on this pretty brutal equation.
Which is?
Complexity equals anxiety, while simplicity equals serenity.
I love that. It's a striking equation, really, because it fundamentally challenges how we even view the cosmos. Okay. Well, the premise here is that we human beings look out at the universe and we just project our own internal chaos onto it.
Right. Like we assume it's as messy as we are.
Exactly. We tend to fall into two camps, We either see the universe as this series of totally random, terrifying accidents.
It's chaos everywhere.
Yeah. Or we view it as a machine so unfathomably complicated that some hyper-intelligent force must have designed it.
Like a giant cosmic watch.
Right. But both of those perspectives are trapped in this microscopic specialization. The source argues that when you zoom out, the universe actually isn't complex at all.
Really?
Yeah. It's fundamentally simple and holographic. It just relies on the exact same fractal patterns, repeating endlessly, just in different iterations.
So the cosmos is actually entirely at peace.
It is. The problem is us. The text calls human beings blunderers.
Blunderers. Man, I am stuck on that term. It just implies this, this total lack of vision or intentionality.
That really does.
If the universe is built on simple, repeating fractal patterns, how are we missing something so obvious?
Well, it's simple. We just move too fast. Our minds are racing at a frequency that totally blinds us to the baseline rhythm of reality.
And the source diagnoses this as the shadow of complexity, right?
Yes, exactly. And the defining characteristic of this shadow is that most people do not intelligently design their lives.
They just react.
They merely react to events. That's the blundering. I mean, you react to loneliness, so you blunder into a relationship.
Right.
You react to societal pressure, so you blunder into a mortgage. Then you react to the mortgage by locking yourself into a high-stress job.
There's no space in that at all.
None. It's just a frantic accumulation of stuff. And by the time you hit that midlife point you mentioned earlier, the average person has made their life so incredibly dense.
It's like they have to spend the rest of their lives just trying to claw their way back to simplicity.
Exactly. Just trying to undo the blundering.
The wake of that blundering sounds pretty devastating. I know the audio references something called the Venus sequence to explain this. Can we break down what that actually looks like in practice?
Yeah, so the Venus sequence is basically a framework for understanding how our deep-seated wounds dictate our relationships.
Like our unconscious triggers.
Right. When we operate from that wounded, reactive state, when we're blundering, we leave a trail of literal, tangible debris.
Like what kind of debris?
Well, we blunder into commitments out of fear, and then we forcefully blunder our way out of them when the complexity just gets to be too much.
So we're talking about things like divorce.
Divorce, crippling legal battles, divided assets, and, most tragically, the children who carry that resentment and division for the rest of their lives.
Wow. It's just complexity stacked on top of complexity.
All born from a lack of an internal pause.
So the irony here is that the engine driving this entire shadow of complexity is just fear.
Just fear of being left out, fear of being overwhelmed by chaotic forces.
But by running from that fear, they're actually creating the chaos they're terrified of.
Exactly. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Wait, okay, I got to push back here for a second.
Yeah.
What about the geniuses of the world? The great scientists, the tech founders, the great thinkers. Surely they've figured out how to avoid this trap, right? We revere intellect.
We do, but that assumption is exactly where the framework flips the script.
Oh.
Yeah. It takes a surprising stance. Cleverness does not equal genius.
Huh.
In fact, Often the sharpest intellectuals are the most deaf to the reality of their own lives.
Because they're in their heads too much.
Exactly. Their cognitive horsepower is the very thing that traps them. I mean, they have the mental capacity to rationalize incredibly convoluted, toxic situations.
So they just overthink their lives into a complete mess.
Right. True genius has nothing to do with intellectual complexity. True genius is inherently simple.
So what is it then?
True genius is the individual who genuinely cares about the quality of their everyday life. It's that simple.
Okay, so if the intellect is constantly betraying these clever people, where are we supposed to look for the truth? Because it seems like we have to bypass the brain entirely.
We do. And that means looking at how this complexity infects our actual physical existence.
Right, our biology.
Yes. We overcomplicate even our most basic biological needs because, well, we struggle with extremes.
Like with money, right. The text mentions money.
Yeah, think about money. Operating with too little creates severe stress.
Yeah.
But acquiring immense excessive wealth creates a totally different but equally intense brand of complexity.
And the same applies to the body.
Exactly. Take water. Dehydration stresses the system, obviously, but overhydration flushes essential electrolytes and stresses the kidneys.
It's all about the baseline.
The truth always lives in that simple balance of the middle.
But the middle doesn't sell products.
No, it certainly doesn't.
I mean, think about you, the listener, right now. Maybe you're sitting at a desk anxiously typing an email while drinking from this massive, measured 4-liter water jug because some influencer said it was optimal.
Right. We have billion-dollar industries entirely dedicated to complicating our lives.
It's like we've completely outsourced our own biology to an instruction manual. We're literally trusting an article over our own thirst.
And the source points out how absurd this is. We have this brilliantly evolved mechanism inside us that tells us exactly what we need.
But we ignore it.
We ignore it for the marketing machinery of modern culture.
So what's the fix?
The directive is almost shockingly simple. Drink when you're thirsty, eat when you're hungry.
But that feels almost too simple.
I know, but that's the point. If a food makes you feel vital, it's good. If it makes you feel sluggish, it's not. You don't need a complex system for that.
So we just need to get back to the essential.
Right. And this explains the stereotypical midlife crisis perfectly.
Oh, how so?
Well, when the biological clock kicks in around middle age, people assume they need this massive, dramatic, external explosion to fix their lives. A new spouse, a new career.
A sports car.
Exactly. But what's actually required are many small internal changes. We need constant pauses to listen inwardly to the body's baseline.
Okay, so what does this all mean for how we interact with the world? If forced, dramatic changes only breed more anxiety, how do we actively practice this?
Well, the source shifts here from the shadow of complexity to the gift of simplicity. And the secret ingredient is timing.
Timing. Like being in rhythm with things.
Exactly. Life naturally runs on broad rhythms. Adventure in youth, stability in middle age, rest in old age.
Staying with those rhythms brings happiness.
Yes. But when we act from anxiety, even if what we're doing is technically truthful or correct, it's off rhythm. And that just creates confusion.
Which brings up the billionaire paradox, right?
Right. Retaining a simple life as a billionaire is the greatest challenge.
Because even if you hide on a desert island, it doesn't work.
No, because you're still sitting on that empty beach, haunted by what the markets are doing or what people are doing with your money.
The complexity is internal.
Exactly.
Okay, let's bring this into our living rooms. What about relationships? Because modern therapy culture tells us we need to verbally dissect every emotion for hours.
And the text offers a massive warning against that. It explicitly states emotional processing is complexity.
Really? But we're always told to talk things out.
Well, words are the intellect's tool. When emotions run high, using words is like throwing cognitive gasoline on an emotional fire.
So what's the simplest route then? If we can't talk it to death?
Spaciousness, presence, touch, breath, silence, or just taking a walk. The body knows how to metabolize anger if the mind stops feeding the loop.
Simplicity isn't about living in separate houses. It's about protecting that spaciousness.
Yes. And to guard that spaciousness, you have to learn how to say no.
But saying no feels like you're causing a problem.
It creates temporary external friction, sure. But knowing how to say no with grace is a profound gift, because when you say no with grace, that no actually contains a yes inside it.
A yes to your own serenity.
Yes, I see.
I love that. Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. We know presence and timing are key, But when your nervous system is completely hijacked by anxiety, philosophical concepts don't help much.
No, they don't.
But the source offers this highly specific physical antidote to the digital age's anxiety. And it's all about your hands.
Yes, the instruction is very literal. Use your hands to find an analog rhythm.
Break that down for me. Why is typing an angry email different from, say, chopping an onion?
Well, digital movement like typing on a keyboard or scrolling on a screen involves these tiny micro flicks. There's no physical resistance.
Oh, that's all abstract.
Right. It keeps your consciousness trapped up in the cerebral clouds. But analog tasks, cleaning, cooking, gardening, painting, knitting.
Things with actual texture and weight.
Exactly. They require sustained physical pressure and sequential movement. And the resistance of the physical world grounds the nervous system.
It's as if our hands act like an anchor, dropping us out of the stormy, complex clouds of our brain and directly into the physical rhythm of the cosmos.
That's a perfect way to put it. The text actually points out that great sages throughout history consistently gravitate toward the ordinary and the arts.
Because both are performed by the hands.
Yes, and this builds into the concept of a handmade life.
Which is basically a rebellion, right?
It's the ultimate rebellion against modern culture. Marketing wants you to have a complex life, so you constantly spend and throw away.
Anxious people buy things to self-soothe.
Exactly. But a handmade life, designing your life thoughtfully over time, maybe decorating your home with art or furniture you made yourself, that is deeply fulfilling.
Because synchronicity is born from that physical grounding.
You got it.
So, if the hands are the physical tool for simplicity, where does this handmade life ultimately lead us spiritually?
It leads to the final stage of the 23rd gene key, the city of quintessence.
Quintessence, what a word.
It's a beautiful fractal word. It means the essence within the essence, stretching into infinity. It's the heartbeat of consciousness.
And mankind has always sought this out, right? Like the Holy Grail or the elixir vitae.
Yes, but the source highlights a specific mythological symbol from Hindu and Buddhist traditions. The Chintamani.
The wish-fulfilling jewel.
Yes, and the linguistic connection here is just staggering.
Oh, this blew my mind. Walk us through it.
So, the root mani means jewel and transformation, but it is also the root for the word hands.
Like manipulate or manual?
Exactly. The text uses this gorgeous image of a Japanese tea master preparing a ceremony. When you watch their hyper-present movements, you can almost feel the jewels in their hands.
Wow.
And think about our evolution. Hands freed early humans from the trees. They unlocked our brain development. Our hands literally are our quintessence.
That is so profound. But the text also gets very specific about where this quintessence actually lives in our daily experience.
It does. It lives in the body, specifically the navel or the belly.
Below the spinning of the intellect.
Right. It lives in time, in the pause, that eternal now. It lives in language, in the silence, the gaps between words.
And in relationships.
Yes, experienced as love, which is just the open space into which we merge.
So achieving the ultimate goal, this quintessence, isn't about acquiring some new grand spiritual truth. It's actually about stripping away the noise until only the silence, the pause remains.
Exactly. It's an act of subtraction. The text asks us to interrogate ourselves. Before acting, ask where the choice comes from.
Is it from the panicked mind or the grounded belly?
Right. And ask yourself, what will your hands leave behind from the living clay of this earth?
Let's quickly recap this journey for everyone listening. We started off as blundering victims of complexity, constantly reacting to fear,
Making a mess of things.
making a total mess. Then we learned to trust our body's basic hunger and thirst, cutting out the marketing noise. We learned to anchor our nervous systems with the analog rhythm of our hands.
Escaping the digital panic.
Yeah. And finally, we touched the quintessence found in the pauses of life.
And the main takeaway here for you listening is to embrace the text's call to rebel.
Rebel against the culture of complexity.
Reclaim the art of the pause, caress life, feel the texture of it, and let it slip through your fingers with a smile.
I love that. And to leave you with one final, lingering thought drawn directly from the closing words of today's source material. The text states that the quintessence of life is death, and the quintessence of death is life.
It's one continuous ring.
If that ultimate, inevitable cycle is the truest simplicity of all, what kind of life will you choose to shape with your hands today? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep digging deep, and we'll see you next time.